Hello and welcome back to our developer interviews here at GameSlice 2021. For those of you just joining us, GameSlice is an event where we playtest unfinished, unreleased, or early access games. If you have not signed up already, there may still be an opportunity, so check out our website when you get a chance. I am here with Laura Tallardy. Did I get that right? Okay, awesome. I'm here with Laura Tallardy from Lunabeat, and we are looking at their VR game, Paranormal Detective: Escape from the 90s. How are you doing, Laura?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me over.
We are very excited to talk to as many developers as we can, and with yours being, I think, the only VR game we have at GameSlice this year. Yeah, there you go. That's right. I'm very happy to have the time. So for those just joining us and who may not have had a chance to check out the game themselves during the event so far, or just haven't been checking things out in general in the gaming world, what is Paranormal Detective: Escape to the 90s?
So the elevator pitch for the game is it's basically it's a VR escape room. So it's got a lot of puzzles, but it's set in an old abandoned mall arcade. So like an old arcade from like the 90s, turn of the century, that, all the 80s kids and 90s kids love to hang out at. And so you go to the arcade, you solve the puzzles, there's a crime that you have to solve, you get to play some games, you get to fight an evil robot. So we actually have a lot going in this game.
I could tell, yeah, absolutely. I was kind of curious what Escape from the 90s meant, if there's gonna be some time elements, but no, you're stuck in an old mall. I like that. How big is the team developing this game?
So it's actually pretty small. It's myself and my partner, Scott Edelman. And we have been working together for 10 years. So
wow.
Almost 10 years. Yeah.
Wow. So is this a title? Have you been working on this title for 10 years?
Oh, no. So we've been working on this title since January. And this is actually a sequel to a game that we made back in, I believe, 2019 called Paranormal Detective: Escape from the 80s. And that was based in an 80s game room. And it did very well, so we thought, you know what, let's do this again. Let's do it in the 90s.
Okay, well, I can't wait for Escape from the 2000s, because that oh god, I'm so old. Where are you guys based?
So I'm actually on the East Coast. I kind of float around New York City, depending on the phase of the moon. And then my partner is based out in Portland, Oregon. So the interesting thing is that we've actually never met. We've talked a lot online, obviously. Our chat history is pretty intense. But yeah, we've been a totally remote team this whole time.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. At the age of the internet, as it were, right? So Escape from the 80s, Escape from the 90s, moving through the decades. Where did this project start originally? Obviously, it's a sequel to Escape from the 80s, but VR projects, these escape room projects, where did it all start?
Well, we actually started off when we worked years and years ago. We worked for a long time on children's mobile games. So we switched over to VR a few years ago, and then we thought, all right, well, what kind of game can we make? A children's game. So we started with that. And it turns out it was a little bit of a mismatch because there's not a lot of children playing VR. We were just, new to the industry and learning that. So we thought, okay, who is playing VR? It's got to be, people who grew up in the 80s, people who grew up in the 90s. And then also my partner, Scott, is really into escape rooms. He's done a lot of them. So he said, no, it's really cool. We got to try this. So he convinced me, and we kind of put the ideas together, and we kind of caught something. It was something that people were a little bit more interested in than our previous games. So we were like, okay, I think we have something here. Let's do something with this.
All right. And I guess through that process, what has sort of been the most either enjoyable or enriching experience through your processes?
Oh gosh, I want to say just hanging out in the VR rooms and designing them. Our previous game was set in an 80s game room, and we wanted to make it very cozy, very leftover furniture from the 70s, a whole bunch of hand-me-downs. So it's a very cozy family room to spend your time in. This one, the footage is actually going off in the detective's office, which is the first part of the game, but later on you get into the arcade. And the arcade's just really cool. We built it to kind of resemble an old arcade I used to hang out at, so I'm kind of nostalgic about it. But you get the lighting right, you get all the scales right, and then it's oh my gosh, this is a really cool place to just hang out in.
There you go.
Test and play the game and all that too.
Virtual arcades coming back in style, maybe reduce the building cost and just put a bunch of virtual arcades in VR space, maybe.
Well, Well, the trippy part is that we actually have been in touch with several VR arcades, so like where you actually go in and pay to use the headset for half an hour. And so our games are likely to go onto there too. So you can go into a VR arcade to go into a virtual arcade.
Awesome. With VR being sort of the unique, I guess, platform or a development space that it is, what was some of the unique or most difficult challenges you had to face while developing Escape from the 90s?
Definitely just the interactions. We're working with Unity, and sometimes the physics works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Any developers, I'm sure, are familiar with this. And then, so it's one thing also if it's on the PC, but once you're actually in VR, it's a lot more disturbing when things start going wrong, or like, sometimes the floor will kind of sweep out from under you. And so any of the bugs, any of the weird interactive problems in Unity can be much weirder and worse in VR. So I'd say that would be the main challenge, is just trying to get everything to behave without anything too bad happening.
Well, I mean, it's a good thing you kind of wrote off a lot of those possible bugs by making this a paranormal game. Oh, what, that flew across the room without even anyone touching it? Yeah. Poltergeist. Actually, that does bring up the next question. What are the paranormal elements in Paranormal Detective Escape from the 90s?
So I hope this isn't a spoiler, because it's a spoiler.
Oh.
But basically, we have an evil robot. It's part of the kind of giant lore that we have going through these games. And so the robot comes and he kind of haunts you, and it turns out that he's been, here's the spoiler, he's been kidnapping children. A little bit like the Matrix, like he needs energy to run his evil robot empire. So he's kind of coming in, he's haunting this arcade. You can't see it here, but like if you play skee ball and you take one of the skee balls and just like chuck it across the room, it'll float back, like the whole thing's haunted because it wants to.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we have a spectral AI that'll play you at air hockey.
So a little mix of between the sci-fi and the paranormal in and of itself, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
We like to think of it as a cheesy B horror movie.
Oh, okay. That context makes a lot of sense now. There you go. Escape from the 80s was also a VR game, correct?
Correct.
Do you guys plan for like your long-term goals for Lunabeat to just stay in VR, or do you think you'll want to explore some other possible opportunities?
That's actually a great question that we just had a very long discussion about.
Perfect.
Because we do love VR. We really, really do. We kind of we have a third Paranormal Detective plan to kind of tie it all together. But then also there's a lot of marketing challenges for VR games, because it's a subset of a larger subset. So it's just difficult to get people, a critical mass of people. So we actually have made one PC game, and we really loved it because we didn't have to do so much VR stuff. It went a lot faster. So we do have a couple plans. We actually have some plans for a Paranormal Detective PC game.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So you don't need the VR, because that's what everybody says. Oh, your game looks so cool. Do I need VR? And I said, yeah, you really do. And I said, oh, I can't play it then. So we're trying to avoid that.
What VR systems does your game currently run with?
So right now it runs on the Vive, the Valve Index, the Rift S, and it will run on the Quest 1 and the Quest 2. We actually just finished porting the 80s game to the Quest 1 and 2, and we're working on kind of getting that out while we're also trying to get this game out. So our Quest port has been successful for our other games, so we're very optimistic about it working for this one.
All right, that's awesome. In terms of that VR development and the weird kind of physics bugs that can happen, do you have like a favorite weird or wild bug that happened in the development of either this or your previous game?
Oh gosh, yeah, there were a few. So with this one, I was just screen recording. I was doing some stuff to capture some GIFs to put online. And I picked up this little Game Boy, and I thought, oh, a little Game Boy, how cool. And then I set it back down on the counter. I forgot I hadn't put colliders on the Game Boy. I hadn't put them on the counter. I hadn't put gravity on anything. So it just kind of like floated down through the counter onto the floor. And I was like, that's weird. And then I picked up the little toy robot, and I filmed him, and then I just kind of tossed him, thinking he would go onto the floor. But I did the same thing, and he just kind of slowly floated off across the arcade, bumping into the machines, and it was pretty silly to watch.
Little did you know you'd accidentally put that mall on the moon.
I know, right?
There you go. So this can apply to your development experience in Journal, whether that's with your old mobile work or even just specifically to VR now, or the PC work you've done as well. But what are some lessons that you wish you'd learned sooner through all this?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, I think actually this is a good time that you caught me with that question. Sorry.
Okay.
Because we're actually launching a Kickstarter next week, so we've been trying to really up our promotion. Everything's been on turbo mode for a few weeks getting ready, and I think the one thing that we've really learned for PC and VR is that you need a much longer lead time than you might think that you would for marketing. In the past, we've been like, all right, we finished the game, now let's bring it to market. Who do we call? Who do we tell about it?
Who do we tell them? Yep.
And we kind of have done that at the last minute in the past, and it kind of works, but you're really you're rolling the dice a little bit as far as planning and getting things out there. So this year we decided to really sit down and concentrate on marketing and treat it like a really serious part of development. We've been spending a lot of time on it, growing our audience, doing Kickstarter things, doing the mailing list a little bit better. So really we're trying to concentrate on that a lot more, and that was something that we haven't really done in the past. And so already I feel like we're seeing some more success from it. So fingers crossed, keeps going.
Now, this is a pre-recorded interview, so you, audience member watching right now, keep in mind this is pre-recorded. What date, Laura, is your Kickstarter going live?
Okay, so the Kickstarter is going live on September 21st. Which is next Tuesday. I don't know if that
for us
recorded.
For us, yeah, there we go. So September 21st. So look at your audience member. Look at your calendar right now. Is it September 21st, 22nd, or 23rd when you're watching this? If it is, then the Kickstarter is live right now, and we'll have a link to that in our Twitter, GameSlice Online. So go check that out right now. Or actually, you know what? Wait till the interview's over, then go check it out. But that does lead to a question I usually leave till later, but let's go through it right now. Where can people find Escape from the 90s?
So right now, it's pretty much exclusively on Steam. You can go and you can play the demo. We have about a 30-minute demo that you can download and play for free. And then when it's published, we'll also be bringing it over to the Oculus Store and the Oculus App Lab for the Quest. So you can just get that on your Quest real fast.
And what about your team's social medias?
Oh, so we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, but I need to make more videos. I can send you the whole link tree. We are mostly on at Lunabeat Games is generally our handle. And then lunabeat.com is our website where everything's kind of tied all in together.
All right, listener, watcher. I've done this for every interview so far, so you know the drill. It's on our Twitter right now if you're watching this. Go check it out. Go give these lovely people your attention and time, and check out their lovely VR game. But coming back a little bit, there are a lot of complex design choices when it comes to not just VR games, but all games. And since you are a small team, I do imagine it's easier to come to consensuses, but have there ever been any design disagreements on your projects? And how did you handle those?
That's a sneaky question. That's very good. Yeah, so I'm trying to think. We discuss things to death. Any question that we have gets an hour-long discussion, and we're both very neither of us want to step on each other's toes. So we'll be like, this is my opinion. I think that we should do this, but if you don't want to do that, that's totally okay. And well, I don't think that we should do this, but if you want to do that, that's totally okay. So we dance around the bush for a little while. But generally we kind of come out, I feel like we both try and give a little bit. If one of us feels very strongly about it, then, then we'll be like, all right, yeah, let's just do it that way. But for the most part, we just talk it out for a very long time. And then come to some conclusion. But generally, we're very agreeable, which is one thing that I really like about us as a team, is that we're pretty much on the same page for a lot of things. And if we do have a disagreement, it's usually over something very small. Like, oh, I don't think this Polaroid looks good. Can you change the format or something like that? So thankfully, we don't get into that too much.
That's good. That's good. There's probably a lot of trust in that development cycle, too, which is nice. So let's say there's an indie developer out there right now and they're watching this, and they're thinking of making a VR game. Besides, obviously, the important note about marketing, what kind of advice would you give that indie developer if they were going to start their adventure into VR development?
Right. I would say just to start small, as with any game, just like think about your idea and then just strip it down to the very smallest, the very barest concept. So like, for even this arcade that we're looking at right now, this started off as a room with a penguin in it. And then eventually we added a skee ball. Then once we got that, we added a little bit more. So I think really, especially when you're starting out, because the interactions can get so complicated, especially with coding and scripting, and then just the collisions and the physics can go crazy. So my recommendation would really just be to start small and try and tackle one thing at a time, and don't do everything at once, because you'll just get overwhelmed and tripped up, and the bugs. Oh God, the bugs.
Can I ask why a penguin specifically?
Oh, so we did a Christmas game right before this. Not like it didn't have a lot of Santas in it, but it did have a lot of penguins in it because we wanted to stay pretty, just friendly towards everyone. And so we were fresh off of the Christmas game, and I needed something for scaling. And so I said, I know that the penguin in this game is about 4 feet tall. So I just grabbed the penguin from the other game, put him in, and I was like, all right, this is about 4 feet. Let's scale all the arcade machines to him. And since then, I've determined what I really need to do. So this is a pro tip for any VR devs out here.
There you go.
Is to get a ruler or a yardstick and actually make it to like in real life 12 or 3 feet. Or I'm sorry, 1 to 3 feet. And then actually use the measure.
That's a long yardstick.
Yes, 12 feet.
Actually, that could work if you want. Like, it would still be to units if you made a character who is functionally supposed to be small or something like that. But there you go. If you're making a mini person, there you go. Use a 12 to 13 foot long yardstick. When all's said and done for Paranormal Detective, how long would you like it? How long of a play session would you like it to be?
So this game is probably going to come out a little over an hour. And a lot of it depends on how fast you are and how good you are at arcade games. So basically you have to work. You start off in the office, you have to get out of the office, you come into the arcade, you have to work your way through the arcade. There's a couple different rooms in here that we actually aren't showing yet in the video. There's a break room, there's a closet. And then once you kind of get through everything, there is a third world, which again, it's still very heavily in development, so it's not in this video. But you basically go to this kind of virtual cyber future world that's very cool, very vaporwave, very like early 3D graphics. But basically, we're aiming for like an hour and a half of gameplay. If you are of average skills in skee ball and other.
There you go. I can measure the time of the gameplay in skee ball skill. Pulling off a little bit from the game and more onto Lunabeat as we're getting close to our time here. I think it's very important to explore the different kind of developers that find their way into the industry space. Because it draws in all kinds of people. What brought you into games, and how did you start your journey personally? That's
a good question.
Yeah.
So back in 2012, basically I had been doing illustration for years and years. So like book illustration for kids, for like little tween books and their little chapter books and stuff like that. And it was really fun. I loved it so much. But basically, the industry had changed a lot really, really quickly. And a lot of publications were folding. And all of a sudden, a lot of the clients that I had were not in existence anymore. And so basically, I was like, oh, this is bad. I have to pivot and do something new. And I've been doing a lot of web development. And then iPhones had just come out. And I was like, I think maybe if I combine this illustration stuff with this, my knowledge of web design and kind of pivot into app design, I might be able to, take advantage of this. And so I did. I started making a few apps, and then I actually got in touch. I was in a Facebook group, and that's how my partner got in touch with me. He said, hey, do you want to illustrate an app for me? I'm making them. And so we started collaborating. We made Mermaid Princess Puzzles, which is still available, and it still sells well. I still love that little game. And then we just started collaborating time after time after time, and then it just became a big thing. But yeah, it just started from switching over to illustration because that was just not working anymore.
Yep.
Happened in the apps game.
Since you've been sort of working in games for at least 10 years at this point, probably a little bit more because, there's the ramp up into it.
Right.
as far as like what you've seen, have there been any changes that you've sort of seen that you've been really excited about? Obviously, you're getting into the I would say the new, I want to say the new technology of VR, but VR's a little bit, it's getting through its paces at this point. But is there anything sort of you're seeing emerging now that you're excited about?
There is so much wild AR, VR technology happening. Every once in a while, I get together with like, a VR AR group. There's a few here in New York that are so wild and wonderful and talented. And I get together with these people. And I think the last time it was, I met somebody who was working on a full body haptic suit that was absolutely intensely insane. Other people are working on this augmented reality stuff, which can get really intense.
Mm-hmm.
I worked a couple years ago on augmented reality glasses from Bose, which basically could tell where you were facing, and it had little speakers. And we made a little game about a little skeleton that sings to you based on what you're doing. So I'd say just all the crazy augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, all that stuff is really intensely insane. And I'm excited to see where it's going to go.
All right.
It's something new and wild.
That's very true. That's something new and wild. All right, awesome. Thank you so much. We are getting close to our time here, so I think we're getting ready to close things off. Thank you, Laura, so much for your time and energy for Game Slice this year. Your game's looking awesome. I can't wait to see how much actionable feedback we can get you. And for everyone watching, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the developer interview with Laura from Lunabeat for Paranormal Detective: Escape from the 90s. Laura, would you like to say your goodbyes?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun. Really fun talking about VR. I hope this was helpful for your audience members. Guys out there, guys and girls and ladies and everyone, if you have any questions about the game or if you want to contact me, I love to talk about VR. I love to talk about development. I talk a lot. Please get in touch with me. I'd love to connect if you'd like to. And then back our Kickstarter.
There you go. That's right. Give them your money. No. All right. Thank you, Laura. We're going to sign off now.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.